Yes, you are now listening to the sound. Sports Reports is ordered. And it's still preview season out there. We making our way through the NFC tonight. We got the North. How will the North be won? We're going to tell you how. And of course, we disagree. Because I got with me the world famous, the world renowned. Born in Texas, raised in VA, representing New Jerusalem. And he wants you to know that all you healthy types out there at Smoothie King and all these other places, it was New Jersey that modernized the blueberry and started selling them. He is Mr. Logic.
Shout out Garden State.
Do not bring feelings to a factory.
Don't do it.
And of course, down here in the Alamo, it is I, your unorthodox statistician, who left so much that you thought I was southpaw. I do believe in Joe Henry. Somebody go check on Deontay Wilder. I am 2-5. Ain't nothing left but to get it. So like, review, subscribe, share, rate, do all the free things. Do all the good things. Do it with a liquid death. Boom.
Severed lime this week.
We got the mango here, you know. So look, Mr. Logical, I'm gonna just go ahead and put this out front, right?
Let's go.
The only people that are picking the Bears and the Vikings to win this division are just trying to be trendy and different. You know what I mean? So the NFC North, when I look at it, I'm gonna just be up front. I'm picking the Green Bay Packers. And part of the reason I'm picking the Green Bay Packers is they're the team that has the least uncertainty. So I don't know how good the Packers really are. You know what I'm saying? They just have the most things that I can prove and less things to pick apart. But the NFC North, before we get started here, you know, last season, best winning percentage by a division in NFL history, 66% win percentage. And of course, that was shocking to me because we saw what the AFC North had done the year prior. So that was shocking. You know, of course, Minnesota's starting over. But here's one for you, Mr. Logical. This is one of those ones. You ready for this one?
Let's hear it.
Brett Favre won the Super Bowl, age 27. Aaron Rodgers won the Super Bowl, age 27. What's up, Jordan Love? Age 27. Keep your eye on it. You know, the Lions have won the division for the last 2 years. This division, Mr. Logical,
listening,
has the top 3 interception leaders from last season. Kirby Joseph from Detroit led the league. Xavier McKinney from the Packers was number 2. Byron Murphy from the Vikings was tied for 3rd. So, Mr. Logical,
I'm listening. What we got?
How will the North be won and who will win it?
The North is going to be won by the team that plays in Ford Field. I got Detroit. And I know you like Green Bay and you feel like they have the least amount of, hurdles to overcome. We could talk about Detroit losing both their coordinators. But, Dan Campbell's still there. He is the heart. It's the same thing with like Philly with Sirianni. Yeah, the coordinators are leaving, but the core, the engine of the team is still there. I believe the belief they have in Jared Goff just keeps them playing at such a high level, even after the bad playoff performance. It was a weird game to watch. Washington and the rookie quarterback just kind of take them apart, but they were losing the defensive player every week. They will lose the starter that they started the season with. They will lose the backup. They'd make a trade. They lose the other guy that replaced the starter. So now the backup's not the main guy, and they will lose a linebacker. Then they will lose a corner. And it seemed like it happened every time I watched a Detroit game. They were losing a defensive player. Eventually, that takes its toll. But
Definitely.
Hutchinson's back. I think Anzalone's back. I think they're getting guys back. Once again, we got a few weeks before the season starts.
Leave it in them.
Thank you. I believe in because Detroit has been essentially the cream of the crop in that division. Yes, Minnesota had a great run last year, but that team's completely different with the young quarterback in there. It's completely like he could throw it up to Justin Jefferson because that's just like, hey, Justin's down there somewhere. But the way Sam Darnold and even Kirk Cousins a couple years back was able to like really push the ball down the field because of just time. Just I've seen cover 3, cover 2, cover 4, cover 6 in the NFL for 4, 5, 6, 7 years. This guy hasn't thrown a pass in competition, a year and a half, almost 2 years by the time, like between the national championship game and him starting this game this season. Yeah. And then he didn't throw a lot of passes in college. So he wasn't a guy that stretched the ball down the field. It was a lot of run game, defensive line, offensive line, running backs, tight ends, Jim Harbaugh style offense. Kevin O'Connell doesn't do anything like that. It's not even close. It's not even the same book. Like, it's not even that at all. It's completely different. So that's gonna be tough. That's gonna be tough for them to adapt to because they're just gonna be games where you need that final drive. You're down 24-20, and because he's new to the game, you might not get those wins like they got last year.
So, to your point about the injuries, one positive, of course, Aiden Hutchinson is coming back. 2 positives. I like that Tyleek Williams draft pick to put next to Aiden Hutchinson. Bad, the negative, back to the injuries, and his Rick Straw got hurt just the other day. Shoulder injury. Dan Campbell saying, hey, he's going to be out for a while. I don't know what that means, but out for a while. So hopefully this doesn't continue. So as I look at Detroit, their offensive coordinator, Johnny Morton stepping into the into the seat. He was the passing game coordinator, so, I mean, okay. He, for the Denver Broncos, we saw what Bo Nix did last year. We always talked about how Russell Wilson wasn't as bad as people made it sound, but then the only time that he was an offensive coordinator, he was a coordinator for the Jets back in 2017, where they ranked around 24th in total offense. Now, with that being said, it's the Jets. So I don't want to take too much into that. Saying the Jets haven't necessarily had the best rosters over the years. So I'm not going to slam them for that. It's just, it is what it is. Their defensive coordinator comes from inside the building. He was, the mentee, if you will, of Aaron Glenn. So I don't know if much is going to change defensively. Maybe he'll have his own stamp. But for the most part, I think it'll be similar to what we've seen. So rumors of their demise, too premature. They have too much talent on that team. Because we talked about, Philly, right? They lost their coordinators. But Philly had, from the outside, they had a lot of in-house beef going on, a lot of frustration.
And they kept it in-house, but it was definitely something.
But it showed.
There were relationship problems in that building.
And remember, they started
2023-24 season.
Didn't know 11-0 that year.
Yeah.
It just fell
the
apart.
The wins mask a lot of stuff. I talked about what Greg Popovich said. He was like, sometimes you might want to miss that last second shot just so you can have something to teach or practice. And I think Philly just kept winning. But
yeah. Green Bay also has, and I don't mean no disrespect because I know I say this a lot, so I'm going to say it one more again.
You'll say something disrespectful. Yeah.
Detroit got the real Reggie Bush. So the Reggie Bush that the Saints thought they were getting. That's Jahmyr Gibbs. He's the most electrifying player in the NFL right now.
So and they got another guy that does the same exact thing in space. Jameson Williams in space and Jahmyr Gibbs in space is just unfair.
It's unfair. And then that's not even to include Amon-Ra St. Brown yet. You know what I mean? We haven't even said that name yet.
And I think like they had some crazy stat, like between him and Jared Goff, they had like 100% completion rate on like a certain route, like a drag, like a certain route, a certain distance or something. It was like the completion rate was out of control.
Yeah, and
so that's moving the ball methodically and big play. Don't forget about the tight end who blocks gritty the way Dan Campbell likes, but they get him out on these deep corner routes. They get him on these post routes when they get matched up with a safety or a linebacker even. You match him up with a linebacker, it's a wrap. They're running that corner route, and whatever linebacker it is, he's left in the dust. And Jared Goff with his tiny hands is still going to put the ball on him.
69% on fourth down last season. So of course, no quarterback likes to be pressured, right? We talked about Tom Brady.
I hate when analysts use that stat. Like, if you get him off his spot, if you get
anybody off
their guard off his
yeah.
spot, you're gonna beat him. Like, that's the whole point. This is my goddamn spot. I need to be here to make this throw.
But allow me to be a hypocrite.
Okay, we go. Yell at you too.
When he's pressured on third down, he's 31st in QBR. So it's not everything. It's just something, so that's the other problem. Green Bay doesn't.
Does that count for down and distance? Because if it's 3rd and 12 or 3rd and 14, because they got a holding call on second down.
Hey, third down.
Everybody knows you. Everybody know you're passing.
But that's one of the weaknesses that Green Bay might have. They might not be able to get to them, but the other two teams in this division can. And then, of course, when I was picking Green Bay to win this division, you know what I was doing when I said it?
You're looking at the schedule.
I was looking at the schedule, which we will do here shortly.
Like we're here.
So Jordan Love. So Jordan Love, right? This is all going to depend on him. Like the Packers, have enough to win. They've been getting to the playoffs. Last year, they played Philly in the first round. Game just started off rough with the fumble on the opening kickoff. But if you go back through last season and look through the Packers' resume here, they went 1-5 in the division games. Out of those 5 losses, 4 of those were by a combined 7 points. So they're not getting blown out. They're right here. Jordan Love just has to make a play or two. And the problem is that he's more far than Rodgers.
All their losses were teams that had 12 wins or more, or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
So there you go. I mean, they lost one to the Bears, but it is what it is. Division rivalry and everything. But yeah, so he's more far than he is Rodgers. And that's where you get yourself in trouble, because these DBs are faster, the defenses are more complex. This isn't the Favre heyday of line up and let's do this. Like, you got to disguise, you got to look around and see what's going on. So I don't
even know what nickel coverage was.
I don't know if Jordan Love is just having an issue reading the defense still. But he has these moments. We talked about it. His first year starting, he had went, from like Thanksgiving on, he hadn't thrown an interception until that playoff game against San Francisco.
Yeah.
But the Packers, they went out and helped Jordan Love in a way that they never helped Aaron Rodgers. They went out and got a wide receiver in the first round of the draft. Matter of fact, it was the first time they drafted a wide receiver in the first round since 2002. Which, if you're doing,
I don't know why they never did. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. Like, they didn't make that move.
Well, I just
considering
don't know.
You have the type of quarterback you had, you had Mike McCarthy, who likes to pass the ball a lot, and then you go to Matt LaFleur. They like to throw the ball around a lot. It's like, yes, I guess getting a guard or a tackle is good for pass protection. But it's like every year, these guys are going to call 40 pass plays per game, but yet you don't go move up to just maybe see if you can get to 16 to get Justin Jefferson a year, because I think he went like 17th or something like that to the Vikings because Philly picked Jalen Reagor before that. So, like, I mean, just making that kind of like, what? Let's see. I think we got everything squared away. Let's make this move. Like I said with Cincinnati, when Cincinnati took Jamar Chase instead of Penei Sewell, like, you know what? We'll get a tackle later. But this guy, our quarterback needs him. I don't know why they didn't do it. I'm glad they did it for Jordan Love, though.
I'm sick of Green Bay, because all these years I've been comparing them to the Steelers because they don't make moves. They're so conservative. They just stand pat and try to develop. Well, the Steelers went out here and got DK Metcalf. You can argue about Aaron Rodgers all you want, but they did that. Green Bay is just allergic to good wide receivers, it seems, because while they added Matthew Golden, who I think is going to be electric. They're bringing in Mecole Hardman. They're bringing in Savion Williams in the draft. 6'4" out of TCU. And coming out of training camp these first couple of days, all I'm hearing is this is going to be a special teams guy at 6'4". So I'm sitting here. Why is Green Bay allergic to prosperity.
Why are you afraid of success?
Yes. And so they got Romeo Doubs, right? Romeo Dobbs. You had him suspended last year because of attitude issues. You got Jaden Reed. I like him a lot. You got Christian Watson, who is probably the best out of the bunch, but he can't stay on the field.
One of the fastest guys in the NFL too.
Right. So as you look at it, Josh Jacobs felt like us. Hey, we need a number one wide receiver. So I think they did get that in the draft. So we'll see how it goes.
But no disrespect to Golden. I think Marvin Harrison Jr. looked the part of insert number one wide receiver. Pickens, DK Metcalf, these guys, you just plug them in, size, speed, just ability, athleticism.
Oh, so you a size king.
When it comes to young wide receivers, because you're not going to be able to get – Devontae Adams knows how to set up a guy if he's trying to run – like I'm trying to run this go route, but I know I got a little bit of time because it's like a little play action involved. So I know I got enough wiggle to shake him here just to get him on his inside, just to go up the sideline.
Right.
He's like, I know that. I know what the timing, I know everything that's going to go on with this coverage. I know I can get here. Golden still has to learn that stuff. So he might just run into the route in the corner. It's like, all right, cool. This is just a go route. I'm going to stay on his hip.
But
and that's an incomplete pass. But when you have, like, you can just throw it up. Julio's down there somewhere. That's a different kind of.
But the good news is we talk about Kevin O'Connell. We talk about Sean McVay. We talk about Kyle Shanahan. Matt LaFleur know how to get a receiver open.
Yeah, but as far as this bona fide, locked-in number one guy, I don't know if – I think you have created more of, for lack of a better word, a battle for number one, because I don't think he's clear-cut over the guys that have already been there. Just because what they know about running routes in the NFL against DBs and these checks and everything else that come along with that, I'm not sure how quickly he's going to be able to pick that up and then usurp them for that position. So I just have a feeling like getting them in the slot early on while these other guys work the outside routes while he gets comfortable. I think that'd just be a smart move. Just having guys get open.
I think that's most dangerous for a while.
I think the number one wide receiver piece it's a little overrated if you have a dynamic quarterback, you have a very strong run game, you're big with the play action, big with the tight end. So it's like a lot of people getting involved in Green Bay's offense. It's not like Kansas City not having a number one guy and Travis Kelce just kind of being like the focal point and the tight ends. So I think Green Bay will be fine with the wide receiver core that they have, but I just feel like I said, 23-20 or 24-20, you need a touchdown. I'm not sure if this young core consistently can beat you out, whereas I think Detroit has that piece figured out. Like all the questions, all that stuff goes out the window in crunch time, and I think Detroit has more crunch time experience than the rest of the division. And I believe I don't think Green Bay doesn't believe in each other the way I think Chicago is going to kind of implode. I believe Detroit, like their cohesion and like the way like they kind of embody the personality of their coach and the way they play, I think that gets them over the hump. I think that's 3 or 4 wins right there, just off just sheer determination. Down 13 2 minutes ago, let's get this touchdown, get the ball back, and go win this game kind of thing. I think that happened for Detroit.
And surprisingly, Green Bay was top 5 in defense last year, total defense last year. So they lost Jair Alexander, which isn't that big of a loss because
he missed a lot of time.
Anyway. Yeah, but the problem is they lost Eric Stokes as well. I think that's going to be the one that might come back and bite them. And like I said, this is a team with no real pass rush that's a threat. So that's where if Green Bay does not win the division, I think that pass rush and lack thereof is going to be their downfall. But you brought up another team in this division, the Bears. So Caleb Williams got himself one of these offensive coaches. You not convinced yet?
I'm just convinced that
Mike.
Chicago doesn't know their own history.
Okay.
They've done this for, I'm gonna say, the better part of the last 15 years,
Okay.
probably 15 seasons, where they know it needs to be torn down to include front office and coaching and personnel. And you need to bring in a whole new wave of people because the blame pie for their lack of success wasn't like, oh, the coach was doing everything he could to make it work and the player didn't respond. It was like, collectively, this doesn't work. It probably doesn't work because this coach can't make it work and this player can't figure out the coach.
Okay.
So they keep getting rid of one piece at a time and then replacing the other one. And then when that doesn't work, they do the same thing. They get another, they fire the coach. He keeps the same quarterback. That doesn't work. They get rid of the quarterback, get him a new quarterback. When that doesn't work, they get rid of the coach. They bring in a new coach. That coach gets the old guy's quarterback. Then the quarterback doesn't work. They get rid of him. They get another quarterback, keep the old coach. And they've done it 4 quarterbacks in a row, like 4 major starting quarterbacks in a row. And they did it again. Eberflus should have been out when they got the number 1 pick locked in. They should have pushed hard for Ben Johnson then, because what he did in Detroit 2 seasons ago was exactly what he did last year. They should have given him whatever he wanted. Then they should have got rid of Eberflus as soon as they got the number 1 pick, and they knew they're going to take Caleb Williams. Because looking at your own recent history, you didn't do that. And what ended up happening, you lose the GM, you lose the coach, because you get a new GM who fires the coach, and then he gets rid of that quarterback, and then like, it just, this perpetual cycle that they keep running into, and it's going to happen again. I think it would have been better for Caleb Williams to have a coach that was trying to succeed in Chicago and learn together. Like, that should have been his opportunity, and
So
he
this is not.
didn't. So now Ben Johnson's going to be like, this isn't my guy.
So this is not the year the Bears get their first 4,000 quarterback ever.
I've seen a couple of, granted, I'm not going to take that much off a couple of clips, but there was a clip he had like a really bad throw when like the pressure just came right up the middle. So it seems like the protections aren't right or the offensive line still hasn't gelled. But in
I'm glad you
practice,
said that.
everybody's right up the middle. So instead of throwing it out of bounds, he still tries to make the throw. And I get it's practice, but you also need to practice getting out of there. Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, if the Mike linebacker got through on the blitz, they didn't try to scramble out. They laid down. They lay down, take the
That's
sack,
also,
let the ball will go to that.
but that's also rookie. You know what I mean? First year. Not necessarily to your point, the best coaching. Shane Waldron, the offensive coordinator they had brought in from Seattle, got fired mid-season. And their replacement was a guy that was
If
more
you
of a
keep
defensive
getting hit in
coach.
the head with an overhand right, and your boxing coach is like, yo, keep your left hand up. If you keep your left hand up, he can't hit you with the overhand right. And then you come back to the corner and you took 12 overhand rights in that round. It's going to be like, just keep your left hand up.
Well, I
All you
know it.
have to do, Caleb, is like, listen, throw the ball away. The problem you had last year was that it was something like his percentage, like 40% of his sacks were on him because he held the ball too long. He wasn't under the pressure, the pressure wasn't the pressure's fault that he got sacked. It's because he held onto the ball too long. Even C.J. Stroud told him, man, stop taking those hits. So like literally you're getting told by the stats, by the analytics guy, by the coach, by the opposing quarterback, the radio people in Chicago, I'm pretty sure, are saying the same thing. Stop taking these unnecessary hits. And then every single week he's getting hit. And it's like, throw the check down. Learn whatever the checks are you need to make for y'all. Like, something has to work. And then he had the clip where he couldn't hit the target that was like 7 yards in front of him. And then threw like a little hissy fit when he walked back to the back of the line. I get it, you're passionate, but this has been his, essentially his problem since college, is that your emotions are too visible in 4K. Like every single time something doesn't go your way, you throw when Washington threw the Hail Mary, like the way he reacted was like
Yeah,
you can't do that
he
as
was
an
crying in
adult
his mama's
first.
arms.
Listen, I get the passion, and I get that like that's the culmination of your college football career. You really want to do well. I understand that piece because that's
I
the
was just
end. That's the
concerned
end of an
because
era of your life. But
if he was that passionate, I didn't want him to mess up his mascara. That's
it
that's
just
that's all I was worried
you're
about.
already an eccentric guy. Like you're already like Russell Wilson is like people deem him as corny, but he does all the other stuff right. He handles everything like a professional. He handles the interviews like a professional. He handles the team change like a professional. Potential benchings, comments by the coach. He handles all that like a professional. So you can think he's corny and you can think all this stuff about him, but he doesn't. He doesn't perpetuate that when shit gets hard. We think Caleb is a bit immature and a bit weird, and then he does immature, weird shit when shit goes wrong. And it's like this doesn't work for an NFL quarterback.
But to your point, though, the last 2 years, maybe even three, all I've been doing is complaining about the Bears' offensive line. You brought up the Bears' offensive line. So the Bears went out in free agency and they addressed the offensive line. They went and got your guy Dahlman from Atlanta. They went out and got Tooney from Kansas City. They went out and got Will Freeze. So we're going to see a new offensive line in Chicago this year. We'll see how that goes. They still got DeAndre Swift back there. They still got Roshan Johnson, who I've been waiting for to break out. They got your guy from Rutgers, Kyle Monangai, back there as well. Then when you look across the lines, right? Roma Dunze on one side, Luther Burden on the other side. And then they went out and drafted Colston Loveland from Michigan. So they cooking with gas offensively right here. You know what I mean? Like, I don't understand why Cole Kmet wasn't more of a focal point, especially with a defensive coach. You would think that, hey, this tight end is your safety valve.
A
You would think.
rookie quarterback and a tight end. It's like that's the easiest. That is the easiest marriage on the football field. I think the relationship between a tight end and a rookie quarterback is probably more as just as important as the relationship between him and the offensive line and him and the coach.
And don't
Because
forget
that is the guy, he's the biggest target, he's closest to the
uh-huh.
line, even a short drag route, because he has a safety on him or a linebacker. It's not as fast as him, safety's not as big as him. Like that's your guaranteed mismatch no matter where you put him on the field, especially when you have a guy like Cole Kmet. Getting
And I,
close to Loveland works. I like that, but he has to know to throw that route. And I don't think he doesn't throw routes on time. He
so
had the most bad throws. I just don't see a lot of like things working out for them
so
this
what I
year.
have my eye on, and we talked about this a little bit last season as well, and I left his name out on purpose just to make this point. We were talking about, is DJ Moore going to get traded? Because he was obviously frustrated with Caleb. Like, he said the right things in the media,
Man,
but
he
the
walked
body
off the
language
field in the
on
middle of
off the field in the
plays.
middle of a play, yeah, so on and so forth. But then the Bears, on defense, Jalen Johnson, one of the best corners in the league, he got paid. Jaquan Brisker is back. Remember, he got the concussion against Carolina week
Yeah,
7, and we never saw him
he
again.
was. That's. I don't know how you miss a whole season.
Right. So
Like
he's back
that was a.
now.
It had to come with something else. Like something had to
Yeah.
be chipped or fractured or something.
Yeah, he's back now. You got Montez Sweat still. You went out and got Shamar Turner in the draft from Texas A&M. So look, the Chicago Bears, when you just look at their roster, right? Games aren't played on paper, but when you look at the Chicago Bears on paper, you could talk yourself into, could this be a surprise playoff team? If you're just looking at the names and not factoring in anything else. But once you start applying football concepts and the things that it takes to win and become a playoff team, you start to realize this team ain't shit. You
But
know what
like
I
I
mean?
said, that was the same conversation people had last year. You had DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Rome Dunze, Swift, Komet, young quarterback. I think the limp back everyone was going with was Eberflus. Like that was a piece that most pundits were talking like, I don't understand keeping Eberflus. But Eberflus wasn't telling him to hold on to the ball. He wasn't telling him to call timeouts, and they couldn't really manage the game. And I don't think they really had a connect on like what was going to work. I felt like that team was just done. They were done. They were done with just. I think Caleb, like I said, Russell Wilson's considered corny, but I think he does it the right way. I believe Caleb Williams might be a little too off, a little too quirky, and like the production doesn't match up. Dennis Rodman was quirky as hell, but the production was there. He might go do WWE on Thursday, but if you get the jet there to pick him up, he'll make it to the game by Friday night and he'll do his thing. Caleb never really seemed to have those moments where it was like, okay, this is what I do from this position. Like, this is how I can show you guys week in and week out. I can do this.
So,
it just never seemed like it came around.
To Mike's point, I feel like this is just like when we talked about Carolina the other day, but Carolina is further behind Chicago as far as the talent, acquiring the right talent. I think Chicago's a year away. I think that Caleb Williams had too much wrong with him to be fixed in one off season. You know,
especially considering everyone believes just having Ben Johnson there is gonna make this meteor like rise.
And they will be better. They will be better.
But
win the division better? I don't know. But you know, then you got the team. Oh, I'm sorry. And last thing, you know, they're bringing in Dennis Allen as their defensive coordinator. So, you know,
not known to be a winner. Like let's keep it a buck. I mean, that stuff matters. It matters to where you as a coach have credibility with the players, especially considering we talked about the personality dynamics between these younger players and older coaches. Like, yeah, you got to show me something. You have to show me. I don't think that ever hurt
North Turner.
North Turner was coaching people from a different generation. These guys want results. They want to know what you've done and how can you get me what I want. Not how can you help me get to where I want to go. It's a different mindset. It's like, okay, I want to be rookie of the year. How you gonna get me there? Not instead of like, how do I come to you to achieve this? It's like, what are you gonna do for me that's gonna help me perform on the field? It's an inverse way of thinking.
You know what Dennis Allen will do? He's gonna do just like this. He's going to show him that ring. You got one of these? Shut up and listen. You know what I'm saying? But then you got the team out there that wears the colors that Mr. Logical is rocking tonight. You know what I'm saying?
In good spirit.
The Minnesota Vikings. So, look, I was thinking about this. You know what I mean? I was thinking to myself, if J.J. McCarthy can be half of what he was sold to us as, Minnesota might pass Chicago this year, you know, because Minnesota did some of the things that Green Bay should have did. Remember earlier we were talking about Green Bay, and I said their downfall might be their lack of pass rush. That ain't gonna be a problem in Minnesota. You know, Grenard, my guy Van Ginkel. You know what I mean? Then you got Jonathan Allen. They went and got Jonathan Allen from the Commanders this year. They went and got, Javon Hargrave to put on that defensive line. Then on the offensive line, they made some moves. So the reason that I said what I said is because Minnesota decided we got to win these games in the trenches. You know, we got a young quarterback who was out all last year, getting reps now. We got to keep him as clean as we can. And if he makes a bad decision, he'll learn from it. But what we don't need is the Caleb Williams recipe where he's running for his life, he's getting hit, and he's throwing the ball just to survive. You know what I'm saying? So I think that Minnesota got that part right. Now it's just up to JJ to execute. He does have Kevin O'Connell. So to Mike's point about Ben Johnson, I'll see you a Ben Johnson and I'll raise you a Kevin O'Connell who we've seen take quarterbacks at the bottom of the league and win 14 games and get to the playoffs. So if there's a sleeper in this division,
Sam Darnold had a good year last year. I wouldn't call him a sleeper. I'm going to venture to say that Detroit and Green Bay will be in lockstep to battle for the division all year, and it will look the part. Detroit might be a little rusty because I think they're going to be filling stuff out, getting guys back defensively. They might win a few games 31-28, and the defense looks like, they're wet paper bags, shit just getting through. Minnesota and Chicago have expectations between coach and quarterback that don't line up in the trenches. I get that Kevin O'Connell is like this quarterback whisperer, but Kirk Cousins had a lot of decent years in the NFL, some couple average, but he had a lot of time in the NFL. Sam Darnold, a lot of systems, and then it worked. It popped for him in Minnesota, but that's the only year we've seen him look like that. I can't imagine that McCarthy, who doesn't come from a college spread, throw the ball around offense, to come to Minnesota where they're playing on turf. They want to play fast. They want to get the ball down the field. They have a wide receiver getting $35 million a year who is in competition with his friend for best wide receiver in the league. And they openly talk about this all the time. Like when people ask him, it's like, it's me, then JJ. Then he's like, oh, it's me, then Jamar. Like, it's very clear, like he wants to be the guy in the league. And for his career, he has been that. JJ's got to get him the ball. And if he doesn't get him the ball, those walks to the sideline, the defense is coming on again after another 3 and out, that's going to be a problem.
And don't forget, Jordan Addison is going to be facing a suspension to start the year. So just off top, as good as I think Minnesota has the potential to be, they're just going to start in the hole because you got to get JJ adjusted. One of the weapons is going to be gone. It's just going to take a minute, but by week 8, you might not want to play Minnesota if everything starts clicking. They went out and got Ty Felton.
Jordan Addison suspended for the first 3 games.
There you go. Ty Felton from Maryland, wide receiver that I love. Maybe he'll get some chances to get into the game and show what he can do. But Aaron Jones finished 9th in the league in rushing last year. You know who Minnesota went and got? Because I was like, is Aaron Jones getting old? Like he's still effective, but is he starting to get to that point where he's going to hit a wall? They went and got Jordan Mason. Remember him?
Yeah.
The
guy that started for San Francisco and caused all those problems because they lied on the injury report. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, but he was leading the league in rushing at one point last year. He finished with 789 yards, but he missed the last 5 games, so he was on his way to at least 1,100 yards. Which is right around where Aaron Jones settled. So I'm not saying that this is Fred Taylor and Maurice Jones-Drew by any means, but it's nice to have. But
you're going to need it with a young quarterback.
Right. And then you're stuck. But you're stuck with JJ, even if JJ's ineffective. Because I don't know if you want to put Sam Howell in the game.
I mean, he'll wing it. He'll throw it. He'll, like, the year in Washington, he led the league in passing yards. So
yeah, I think Cam
it might not be the craziest idea.
I think Cam Bynum's going to be a big loss for them. I believe he's in Indianapolis now. You do have Byron Murphy back who's trying to get paid. So I expect full maximum effort out there. So Minnesota is not a bad team. I just think that the one spot that they need to excel in is the spot that we have the question mark about. Like if they had Sam Darnold this year, I might have picked them to win the division. Just based off
Sam Darnold, I'd pencil them in for 11.
Yeah, just based off what we saw last year. Yeah, like you know what I mean. I would have done that, but while we're here, Sam, we might as well look at the schedule. We're gonna go in reverse order this time. So let's look at Minnesota real quick, since we're talking about them. The Vikings, like I said, Detroit is the one that got the bad schedule, but you expect that because they got the first place schedule.
They have the first place schedule.
Right. So you expect that. But here's Minnesota. and we jump to it right away. Monday Night Football to start the season at Soldier Field. Black and blue division. Line them up, knuckle up, and let's go. Now, I will tell you this, Mike, and I will tell you this, world. Let the Bears lose that game.
It's
Let the Bears lose that game and
it could
watch
be tough.
Chicago, the city of Chicago, implode.
Yeah, I think the city, I don't want to bang on Caleb because I think someone who worked as hard as they did for their whole life to get to this position. Like, I've never been an NFL quarterback. I've never been a high prime athlete. I'm just speaking about how patience and performance and personnel,
You gotta hope.
all of that runs together. In that particular organization, they have done a poor job of it for the last, we'll say, like I said, about the last 10, 12 years. So if we go back to, we'll say, if we go back to Trubisky, they took Trubisky when Trubisky had like 16 or 18 starts in college and passed on Watson, who had been to a couple of national championship games, won one, passed on Mahomes. They had all those opportunities. Then they go get Justin Field. They trade up to get him, and it's like he didn't need to. It just he looked the part because he had such a great college run. But it's like
Right.
I don't think we have the personnel to make this work. Didn't work. They fired the coaches. I just don't
And to your
feel like
point-
the
and to your
patience
point,
is
the
going to
Bears
be there.
just extended Ryan Poles too. There you go.
So
But so Minnesota's looking probably at best, they're looking at 1-3 right down the barrel. And that's before they get into the meat of their schedule. Because if you look here, Mr. Logical, after the bye week in week 6, whew. Welcome to the NFL, JJ.
yeah, it's a tough ass stretch because
Welcome.
he went 10.
He went 10, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to do revisionist history.
Yeah,
But
but Trubisky wasn't it.
Yeah,
Like
Trubisky wasn't it.
Trubisky didn't stand out over anybody else in that first round of that draft. Like, that's, we can look at, however Mahomes, like, diamond in the rough. Trubisky wasn't it.
He had such a similarity to Mark Sanchez when you think about the limited experience that he had in college and thinking that he's going to come in and be a franchise quarterback, and especially sending them to, because we always talk about this with quarterbacks. It depends on where you go sometimes. Chicago ain't the place for a guy like Mitch Trubisky. Like, he needs to be Camp McConnell, Camp LaFleur, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But look at this stretch. Philadelphia, at the Chargers, at Detroit, Baltimore, division game against Chicago, at Lambeau, at Seattle, which I said, I don't know how good Seattle's going to be, but Seattle's still a tough place to play.
1, 2, 3,
Washington,
4, 5,
at
6,
Dallas
7,
before you get a
8,
potential
9.
breather. But
They could lose 9 in a row.
By the time you get that breather, it's week 16.
They could lose 9 in a row.
Come on, Mike. Don't be disrespectful now, Mike. Don't be disrespectful now.
I mean, he honestly. Me and Mike always kind of argue.
Went to the same school. That's the only argument.
I think it was a lazy announcement. It was the same thing with Zach Wilson. He made that throw, and it's like, listen, if you watched them all this whole time at BYU, he was a number 2 overall guy. But with
Drake May
Minnesota,
actually showed stuff in college. Like, people were like clamoring for him to get Heisman.
I think it was the size. Just the sheer man amongst boys. I think he was 6 because he was like 6'4". No, he's 6 feet. He's like 6'4", 225, 230 in college. It's like, quarterbacks aren't that big in college, but so him to be that big, it just makes you like man amongst boys. Trubisky never looked the part. Like, even his highlight tape was, I'm like, oh yeah,
point. Like, yeah, Trubisky.
Drake May just keeps running into tacklers, and I was like, stop doing that. You got to last. But back to Minnesota.
But yeah, like
they could lose 9 in a row and play good football and just be outgunned. They're outgunned against Philly. They're outgunned against LA, outgunned against Detroit, outgunned against Baltimore. They can play
Drake
quality football
Yeah.
and then still lose all 4 of these games. Chicago's a toss-up. Depends on how the first matchup goes. Green Bay, I think that's division rival, but it's at Green Bay. Outside November, Seattle, same thing. Seattle's going to have a more stout defense. They have a more experienced quarterback. Washington has the edge because I think they have the better
offense. Want to
offense.
play against you.
Yeah.
Seattle's going to have a quarterback that wants your ass on a stick.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Dallas, if Dallas has things ironed out by then, they're going to be a solid team. Definitely offensively, they're going to be formidable.
I know Minnesota's literally looking down the barrel of 3-14,
and it's like,
and it's not even their fault, really. Like,
it's not. Yeah, it's just it's kind of the same thing with the Giants.
Yeah, JJ McCarthy could play well, but just look at the teams, and
JJ McCarthy could put up CJ Stroud numbers, and they still will not win games. Like, they're just kind of just out. They're just outmanned.
Yeah, December is, January ain't. You know what I'm saying? So then, let's take it over to the Bears. You know what I'm saying? Let's look at the Bears.
I want to say something. I feel like I'm saying a lot of negative stuff, and I don't want to. I want to say positive stuff. It just
bring it on.
Just logically, I'm just looking at it like there
Come here for your toxicity.
Like a grand disadvantage that those teams have. Mainly
you know what I'm saying? More toxicity than a Komodo dragon up in here. But you know what I'm saying? But here we go. So same thing, right? Bears open up with Minnesota Monday Night Football. Then they go to Ford Field.
I think Chicago could go. They could go in the bye week 2-2.
They could. They very well
and be optimistic.
Get their bye week. Go to Washington, which is the site of the Hail Mary. So
2-3.
Well,
3-3 with New Orleans.
I imagine Chicago. I mean, and this is just 2-5 thinking. I don't know what the Bears really think about, but if I was a player on the Bears, I'm thinking about that Hail Mary.
If you think about it, they thought about it a lot. That's why they kept losing games after that. That's why they had that skid.
But then they get New Orleans, another breather. But then look at that. Back to back. Back to back.
So 3-3, 3-5. Maybe Cincinnati's defense doesn't get ironed out, and
that's the thing about Cincinnati is that they could beat anybody and they could lose to anybody. They
can lose 35-14. Or 35-34 to Chicago if they don't get their defense figured out. Like if the pieces they have, if they don't bring back Henderson, or if it just doesn't work. But I think
Mr. Logical, do me a favor real quick, Mr. Logical, before you even say another word. Look at 12 through 14 and then 16 through 18. You know what I'm saying? Remember good times? JJ, you in trouble.
Hell, you never know. Cleveland still might be good.
I mean, if nothing else, Myles Garrett is going to get after.
Yeah. Myles Garrett moves like a machine. Like like watching the Cleveland practice with the camera, like, because I've been getting a lot of Cleveland Brown stuff because like through the draft and everything else. I watched the videos from my algorithm. I get a lot of Cleveland Brown videos. The camera at ground level, I'm just thinking to myself, as an offensive lineman, you can't think about anything else but Myles Garrett. Like, I imagine when they go into games that the guy who has to block Myles Garrett, they don't give him any other responsibilities. Like, listen, do not take your eyes off. He moves so fast, I think he could wreck a game by himself.
And I'm not even trying to be cliche, but you probably don't even sleep the night before. You know,
I can't, because it's the way that he moves like a feline, like a jaguar, like it's ridiculous for a man who's like 6'5", 265, 270, and to move like that. And you see when he dunks in the basketball, it's unfair that you have to line up. So even in that game with the 6 quarterbacks they have on Cleveland's roster, you roll any healthy guy out there and they get a couple of turnovers, 14, 10-0 lead, they might be able to hold on to it. So, yeah, Chicago's in for a world of hurt because I think every loss is going to be like just compounded in the media. I think it's just going to be amplified. The rhetoric about Caleb Williams is going to be amplified. I don't think he'll handle the losses well. Ben Johnson's already kind of saying more than he needs to say to the media, and it's like you're trying to motivate the guy. Like he says some stuff about like they kick the guys out of practice, like they kick
my guy Luther Burden out. Yeah,
they're kicking guys off the field. Like I'm pretty sure that happens in all practices, but at the end of last season, the conversation around Caleb Williams was, all right, can we get a coach in here that can reaffirm his confidence? And then Ben Johnson's kind of saying, being quoted saying like, hey, we had a lot of sloppiness at practice. Like just these kind of words that you're saying publicly at practice, he might pull him to the side and talk to him like, listen, this is what's going on. And he's just being honest with the media. But like I said, looking at 2-2 going into the bye week, we got 3-3 after New Orleans. So, you know, it's not falling apart. But after New Orleans, you have this stretch where, granted, I believe you'll beat the Giants because I'm not sure what the Giants quarterback position is going to be. But you never know. The Giants might figure it out and surprise us and knock out,
Giants got a good
5 or 6 wins. They have a bunch of first rounders on the excellent defensive line. So maybe now you go 3-3 and you lose these 3 in a row, and then the third one being in New York, who might have a couple of wins or not look good up until week 10. So now you're 3-6, and your 6th loss was to the Giants, who everyone has pretty much pegged to go 2-15 or 3-14. That can be a tough time for a young quarterback and a young coach, because 3-6 is probably the most realistic first 10 weeks of the season for them, in my opinion. So I think they're going to have to answer that, and I don't think they do a good job of answering those kind of pressure cooker situations.
If I'm just looking at the schedule, and of course, this is dependent on how you want to look at it. That Pittsburgh game could be very crucial. It's at home. Going up against a guy that usually plays well against.
You think it's more crucial than the Giants game?
No, because I think they beat the Giants, so I'm not too concerned about that game.
But I think it's crucial because I think they're coming off a 2-game losing streak.
Coming off of that stretch, yes. But
coming off that stretch, I can't imagine you're going to look good. Like I said, Cincinnati does have Joe Burrow, and he'll probably win that game 42 or whatever. But if they don't, like if Cincinnati does figure out, or if like Caleb just can't get it going, and you're coming off a 2-game slide, and you're at home with the hapless Giants, and they put 28, 31 points on you, and you lose, that press conference is going to be brutal.
Yeah. So then the thing that I want to see for real, though, at the end of the season is that week 17, Sunday Night Football out in the Bay, just from the standpoint of you got the lights against a really good team, that should be a Super Bowl contender if things break right for them. How do you react? Because, that was a thing, right? Kirk Cousins in Sunday night, Andy Dalton in prime time. These were conversations that we were having. So I want to see Caleb under that magnifying glass. And the reason why that becomes so important is because of how late it is in the season. So we should be able to look at Caleb Williams, and I'm sure Ben Johnson is looking for this as well. You should be able to look at Caleb Williams week 1, look at him again after the bye, and then right in this last, starting week 14, probably at Lambeau. Now I want to see everything that we talked about come to fruition. I want to see the things that we've worked on. I don't want to see no more mistakes now. I mean, you're going to have picks because, you're a quarterback, but I don't want to see the dumbfoundedness anymore, the deer in headlights. I just want to see you play.
I don't want to see that earlier. I want that nip before the bye week.
I do too, but I think that
I don't want somebody on New Orleans to get through in week 7 and you throw the ball up.
Especially like that's what Jordan, right?
That's what happens with like these in those situations where, because like I said, it happened to Kirk Cousins in Atlanta. It was like, we gave you a 5-week stretch, and I think he had like 1 touchdown and 9 picks, and they were all bad picks. The offense never looked good. They scrambled and got that win against the Raiders.
Right.
They had to hold on because, like, I think the Raiders had a Hail Mary into the end zone at the end of the game. But after that, he got benched because it's like, you can struggle because you're human. But at a certain point, when we look at the team and say, this isn't working right now. It happened to Bryce Young, and they pulled him early. And then Andy Dalton got in the accident, and they put him back in. I think he figured it out. But I think he handles those moments better than Caleb. And like, Caleb needs time. He's still like, I think Caleb is probably like the same age as like my oldest son. So I'm not bashing. I'm not expecting my son to have everything figured out. But it's like, you can't be doing the same shit you were doing at 15. And I got to keep reminding you of that. Like, I got to get on you about that. And I think Caleb can't keep doing the same things that he was doing at USC. Like, can't hold on to the ball, can't scramble. Everybody in the NFL runs 4 or 5s.
Right. So remember
the 270-pound guy or the 170-pound guy, they're the same speed.
So remember earlier when I was saying you got to look at the schedule? Well, let's look at this here schedule. This here be the Detroit Lions. So starting out at Lambeau, Chicago. And then it gets a little weird. You go to Baltimore. Last time you went there, you scored 3 points. You got Cleveland. Okay. At Cincinnati, at Arrowhead, back-to-back, and then come home for Monday Night Football against Big Play Bake. Woo! That's going to be rough.
I could see 5-2 in there.
I don't know.
I could see them beating Kansas City at Arrowhead.
I could see them beating Kansas City. I don't see them beating Baltimore. Obviously, I'm picking Green Bay to win the division, so I'm gonna pick Green Bay at Lambeau.
I got to win that one. Yeah,
you know what I mean. The Cincinnati one, like I said, can go either way because Cincinnati's one of the few teams that can go blow for blow with Detroit offensively.
Yeah, they have the downfield playmakers that can match up.
I want to give it to Detroit. You know what I'm saying? As far as that victory against Cincinnati, but like I said, it just depends on which Cincinnati shows up. So you got your Tampa Bay Monday Night Football game and going into your bye week 8. So then you got, Minnesota. Okay, you come back from the bye, you're feeling refreshed. We're good to go. Maybe you're motivated to go to Washington and kick their ass after that playoff game. You know what I'm saying? Like Dan Campbell's going to show you that tape. That whole week. The same way that every single year I have to watch wide right. The same way that I have to watch Christian Laettner hit that shot, to get to you're going to be watching that. You're going to be watching that.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And then, so then after the fact, you know what I mean? You go to Philly, go to the champs.
I think they have a tough schedule, but if we're going to use a spread, I figured that they're favored, like in this stretch right here that we can see on the screen, I figured they're favored by 5.5 against Minnesota, so pretty much a touchdown. I think they're favored by, I give them 3.5 at Washington. I think Philly's going to be favored at Philly. I give them a touchdown at New York. I think it's probably a toss-up with Green Bay. I give them 3.5 at Dallas or home for Dallas. I think the Rams, we don't know what the Rams are going to look like in December. They have a quarterback that's, on the, closer to 40 and he is 30. I like them favored. I like them favored in a lot of the matchups other than Philly. I think it's maybe
they might not be favored at Arrowhead.
They might not be favored at Arrowhead. They might not be favored at Baltimore. So I think they're probably going to be a favorite in about 12 of their 17 games. And then, the division games are probably going to flip, back and forth between whoever's hot. Like if Green Bay's on a hot run or whoever's leading the division or something like that. I just feel like I don't think they walk in the stadiums at a deficit the way Minnesota is going to walk in the stadiums a little behind the 8 ball.
Oh yeah, they have the
Chicago's going to
potential to
walk
have a
in.
top 5 offense and defense.
Yeah,
Provided
so
that the defense can stay on the field.
I just think they have tough ass games. Like playing 3 AFC North teams in a row. That's just probably a bad stretch. But if they can squeeze out 2 out of those 3 wins, like say they're getting blown out by Baltimore early and they get to rest some guys and then get to come back the next week. But like 3 AFC North opponents in a row with how many? 2 on the road or 2 at home?
Let's see, 2 on the road.
2 on the road.
And then they follow that second one or that second road one up with going to Arrowhead.
Going to Kansas City. Yeah, so that's a tough
don't
stretch.
Forget, Tampa came in there and beat them last year. They came into Ford Field and beat them last year.
Yeah, so he's gonna have to bite a lot of kneecaps. But if, like I said, I don't see them being, behind when the game starts. At the coin toss, it's probably a good coin flip. Minnesota, if like you said, if someone's picking Minnesota, Chicago to win the division, they're just doing it because they want their parlay odds to be higher of that $10 division, getting all 8 divisions right pick, because logically it doesn't compute that those 2 teams are gonna jump.
All right. So then, of course, that was the other 3. Now it's time for the schedule of the Green Bay Packers. So, of course, starting with Detroit, home for Washington, at Cleveland, home for Dallas.
At Dallas.
I'm sorry, at Dallas. I'm sorry. I'm not saying it, but I could see 4-0 there. I could.
I see more like 3-1. Early bye weeks for young teams always like bad for me. I'm pretty sure they'd rather have like a week 9 bye week. Like an older team probably wants a week 5, 6, or 7. Like Washington's gonna want let's tighten up. Let's give us a Thursday game and a bye week. Get us like 10 days off or something like week 7. Yeah. But
and then over there on October
3-1.
Over on October 26th, Aaron Rodgers is going to play his best game he's played in years.
Oh yeah, that's a 330-yard game.
Remember you always talk about that. When the last time he threw for 3?
That would be the game.
That will be the game,
That would be the game.
But they got a home game against Cincinnati and at Arizona in between. And Arizona is one of those teams that I think it's the Forrest Gump thing. Life is like a box of chocolates. You just never know what you're going to get week to week from the Cardinals.
I just don't know. I don't get it. I don't know. It's like when Kyler Murray said it's not my job to get the ball to Marvin Harrison Jr. I'm like, what?
It ain't my job. Like,
that's your whole your whole job is to tell him, like, listen, man, I want to throw you this ball, so I need you to slow down in your break and come back so I can get you the ball, because you are the biggest target of most of the NFL wide receivers. Like, he's up there with DK Metcalf and picking like 6'3", 230. Like, you're essentially a unicorn at that position. Like, I'm trying to feed. If I'm Kyler Murray, I'm trying to get him the ball as much as I can because it makes me look good. Keeps the pressure off. But if you don't give him the fucking ball, he's out there just doing cardio.
So the thing I like about Green Bay's schedule is...
We'll get to the NFC West.
Yeah, so the thing that I love about the Green Bay Packers schedule is their tough games are they're more spread out, if you will. So, let's go back up to the top for a second. So you got your tough to start out the season, right? Detroit and Washington, 2 playoff teams. You go into Dallas. Dak should be in swing by the time that game comes around.
Right.
He should have his footing again. But then after the bye week, Cincinnati's tough. You get Arizona in between. Obviously, you could argue that Arizona on the road is a trap game because you got Aaron Rodgers the week after that.
Yeah, but it's not a tough game.
Right.
It's not the personnel they don't make it a tough game.
Then you get Carolina at home. You get Philly at home. Then you get Giants and Minnesota back to back. You go to Detroit, but then you play Chicago at home. This is where it might be a little tricky. You go to Mile High, go to Soldier Field. And then you come home from Baltimore that you'd rather play at home than in Baltimore.
Correct.
And then you got Minnesota on the road. So I think that their schedule is more balanced as far as you don't have that, hey, here's Baltimore.
They don't have a murderer's row in their schedule.
Right.
This is the third division we've done. So that's 12 teams.
Yes.
They're the first team that you look at their schedule like, okay, that seems reasonable.
Yeah, and that's
everybody else's schedule has been definitely like you talked about Minnesota. Minnesota could lose 9 games in a row because of their schedule.
So yeah, so like we're I don't know. The NFC North is going to be an unpredictable division as far as those last 2 teams, but it's going to be the best division in football again, I think, when it comes down to it. So
this year,
back,
or just in general?
Just this year. So, with that being said, we will be back on Friday for the NFC West. Can the 49ers get back off the ground? What are the Rams? We're going to find that out and much more on Sports Reports as Ordered. So he is the world-renowned, world-famous Mr. Logic. Don't bring feelings to a fact fight.
Yeah.
I am. 2-5 down here in the Alamo. Like, review, subscribe, share, rate. Do all the free things. Do all the good things. Drink you a liquid death, and we see you in a few days. Love you. Peace.